What is the Three Seas initiative and why was it created? What void does it fill within the EU ecosystem?
Well, the Three Seas initiative was launched in 2016 in Dubrovnik. It is a Central European launched and led effort to accelerate the development of cross-border energy, transport, and digital infrastructure in the region between the Baltic, Black, and Adriatic Seas. It's unique because what it's trying to do is marshal the power of the free market to drive forward regional infrastructure development. So this year we had our seventh 3C Summit in Riga, and it was a success. And by we, I really should say the Central Europeans held that summit. I was able to attend, but and the Latvians were the host. And among their accomplishments were increased attention from the world beyond Central Europe. They had representatives from the German Development Bank. They had representatives from the Nordic Development Bank. They had representatives from Japan, the Japanese Development Bank. And one of the deliverables, one of the achievements of the summit was the commitment by the United States to finally close the deal on a promise to invest or provide provide some $300 million in financing for the Three Seas Initiative Investment Fund. Among others who were there were the President of Germany, the Foreign Minister of the UK made comments or had comments delivered to the summit meeting, as of course did the Secretary of State of the United States. I think there were 8 or 9 heads of state from the 12 Three Seas countries. The others represented as prime ministers or other top officials. The executive vice president of the European Commission, Dombrovskis, was there. And at Riga, there was also, in addition to the summit, the Three Seas Business Forum. Every time they have a summit, there's a Three Seas Business Forum. And one of the highlights were remarks, they were pre-recorded remarks by the managing director of the IMF. So it was a good event. It pushed the ball forward, and it underscored kind of the unique approach to regional infrastructure development that the Three Seas has been pushing forward. And I would say is very similar to the Build Back Better initiative that the United States has been pushing in the G7.
The Three Seas initiative states itself as politically motivated but commercially driven. What does this mean for the initiative, and why is connectivity one of its main focuses?
Well, the politically motivated, commercially driven phrase reflects an effort to marshal the power of the free market, to leverage the power that through private capital finance to foster the development, accelerate the development of infrastructure like roads, highways, railroads, power lines, digital connectivity, and such. And the core of the Three Seas initiative is the Three Seas Initiative Investment Fund, the Three Seas Fund. And in that fund has been created by investments by 9 of the 12 Three Seas countries, totaling over $1 billion. And now with the United States, it'll be closer to $1.4 billion, depending on exchange rates. That fund is managed by a private commercial investment fund, the Amber Infrastructure Group. And it basically manages that fund and directs its investments into infrastructure projects in the region on a purely commercial basis, on a purely for-profit basis. So the mandate of the fund and its managers is you can invest anywhere within the Three Seas region. Your project has to involve at least one Three Seas country and another country, hence the cross-border dimension, and it has to be in the realms of cross-border energy, transport, and digital infrastructure. That fund has been established in a manner that protects it from political influence. So its decisions are free from political interference. So even though Poland's the largest investor in the Three Seas Fund, its prime minister or president can't late one night call the fund manager and say, hey, I have an election tomorrow. Can you please invest in Gdansk? The fund manager will say, thank you. for your views. Thank you for this project. We'll look at it and we'll assess it in comparison to other projects that are out there that we could possibly invest in. And if we feel that it is the most competitive in terms of commercial returns for the fund, we'll be back to you. That's very, very important because that removes political shenanigans and politics that would basically scare other investors away from the fund. The goal of the fund is to achieve a level of about $5 billion, $3 to $5 billion in total value. And its hope is that the first $1.25 billion, $1.5 billion it is gotten from 3C's member states and perhaps other development banks will serve a catalyst to incentivize private investors, pension funds, businesses to make similar investments into the fund. Hence leverage the power of the market. In this way, 3Cs is a politically motivated but commercially driven project. The motivation is cross-border infrastructure, which generally tends to be driven by governments. But what they're using is the power of the free market to actually accelerate and effectuate those projects to make them a reality. What they're trying to do is tap into the over $1 trillion, close to $2 trillion in foreign direct investment that's circulating around the globe every day, looking for a place that it can make good, safe returns on investments. And 3Cs is basically leveraging the very, very conducive, the very, very attractive investment environment offered by these 12 EU member states. These countries between the Baltic and Black Sea feature some of the highest rates of a return for foreign direct investment in the EU. In fact, before COVID, I think six of the seven or seven of the nine top rates of return found in the EU were in 3Cs countries. One of them as high as 11%, which is absolutely remarkable, and the lowest in that group being about 7%, which is pretty darn high. And you just look at the growth rates of these countries, they're about 3% on average. They were over 3% on average before COVID, and were projected to be that out to 2025. So you have good rates of return. You've got a geoeconomic mass of $2 trillion in GDP in the economies, 110 million in people. You've got an infrastructure deficit, which means, if it's built in the right place, it'll be used, it'll be tollable, it'll be profitable. These are all factors that make this region very, very conducive to investment. And the purpose of the fund is to attract that investment into the infrastructure domain, but also to highlight the opportunities that Central and Eastern Europe offer foreign direct investment.
What is the relation between EU membership and belonging to the 3Cs initiative?
There's a debate going on in the 3Cs community and whether or not they should expand their membership, for example, to Ukraine. I think I used to be skeptical of that. I used to think that they needed to really protect and nourish the advantages, the marketing advantages that come with saying we are EU member states in Central Europe. We are countries that are bringing you the rates of return you find in Central Europe, but also the risk reduction that comes with EU membership, rule of law, political stability, and such. But in talking to colleagues in the investment community and looking at the urgency of the situation in Ukraine, I've been convinced that the private capital isn't really swayed that much by the EU membership. They're more swayed by the opportunities and the growth rates and the rates of return. And then second, bringing in Ukraine, and for that matter, other members of Central and Eastern Europe that are democratic, defined by a rule of law and are transatlantic as an outlook, that will significantly increase the geoeconomic mass of the region. I mean, look at Ukraine. It's a country. The 3Cs countries now have a total population of 110 million. Ukraine's got 45 million. Ukraine is going to be a big focus for development once it gets over this hurdle of beats back the Russians. So there's going to be billions of dollars attracted to that region, directed to that region. It's also a country that will offer many greenfield infrastructure opportunities, which is exactly the strike zone of the 3Cs fund. So those are good reasons. They're moral reasons, they're geopolitical reasons, they're geoeconomic reasons, and then they're plain pure commercial reasons why I think it would be useful for the three Cs to include a country like Ukraine, and for that matter, Albania and some of the other Western Balkan countries. I think this issue will be one of the debates that will lead us on the road to the next 3C summit, the one in Bucharest in 2023.
Has the war in Ukraine affected the trajectory and plans of the 3Cs initiative?
Well, I think this tragedy, this unprovoked, this act of aggression by Russia against Ukraine has certainly stimulated interest within the 3Cs community about its relationship, the 3Cs relationship with Ukraine, with some countries advocating for Ukrainian membership. So that's been definitely one impact. Another impact has been certainly on the commercial side, how impact on the investment client. And that has certainly adversely affected Ukraine. So there's no doubt about that. Its GDP has dropped by 40%. No one wants to invest in a country that's under attack. But surprisingly, the rest of Central and Eastern Europe, aside from Moldova, has not been that adversely impacted as a potential realm for foreign investment. Everyone's economy has been adversely affected by this war because the increase in gas prices, looming recessions, and around the world, being partially driven by this aggression by Russia and its impact on the on energy markets. But fundamentally, I think the international investment community looks at Central and Eastern Europe, looks at the 3Cs region defined by the 3Cs countries today as still a fundamentally sound and opportune place to invest. I was surprised. I thought it would be a sharper reaction. But if there has been any slowdown in investment, I think it's more in the 3Cs region. I think it's more been a reflection of the slowdown in the global economy than it has been due to quote unquote risk aversion consequent to the violence in Ukraine, or the violence against Ukraine, I should say.
Has the aggression against Ukraine changed the vision for the initiative to transform from a commercially driven one to another with deeper political and security implications?
No, I think right now they're really focused on getting more momentum into their core mission, which is to, drive forward cross-border infrastructure development. And it's an urgent need. I mean, when you look at a map, or if let's say you're sitting on a satellite and you're looking down on Earth and Europe swings underneath you as the Earth rotates, you look at Western Europe, you'll see a spider web of connectivity, a spider web of cross-border connections, railroads, highways, small roads, pipelines, the NATO pipeline network, the commercial pipeline networks, canals, electric grids, fiber optic cables. It's thick, it's dense. And you go over to Central and Eastern Europe, and I'm being a little bit hyperbolic, but there's a lot of truth to this. It's pretty Spartan, with a few major east-west connections, Druzhba pipeline, for example, a couple of highways, but very Spartan. And on the north-south axis, almost nothing. And just look at the travel times. I think it takes 3 to 4 times longer on a north-south axis to travel in Central and Eastern Europe than it does in Western Europe. So that's a real inhibitor when it comes down to social connectivity, economic transactions. It's an inhibitor to economic growth, and it's a reflection of the fact that the vision of a single European market really still has a lot more maturing to go before we can say it's truly fully effectuated. So these countries I'm pretty confident, are going to remain focused on that core mission of infrastructure development, leveraging commercial markets. I don't think they'll take on a broader political agenda. What I could see it do, and what I hope it will do, it will start institutionalizing itself so that the 3Cs will feature not just annual meetings and the 3Cs fund, but some sort of secretariat that will give it a 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week operation. because an important part of the 3Cs initiative has to be letting the world know about the opportunities that are in the region. They have to go out and knock on doors to generate awareness. They just can't assume the capital has come flowing over to them because they have a bunch of good numbers. They need to show up at different events, different summits, different expos, different conferences, knock on doors of different banks and commercial houses and say, hey, here we are. We've got this special opportunity. You need to come over here and invest. That, I think, would be institutionally the most important thing the 3Cs initiative can do in the near term, and would have near-term, medium-term, and long-term effects to be very profound. It would accelerate the impact that the 3Cs initiative is having.
Is there a benchmark of development the 3Cs initiative has set as a goal?
If you had to set a benchmark, it would be to ensure that their level of cross-border integration through infrastructure matches that of Western Europe. I mean, they estimate now that the gap between Western Europe and Central and Eastern Europe, when it comes down to cross-border infrastructure, is somewhere between $500 billion and $1 trillion. So that's a lot. That's a lot of work that needs to be done. It reflects a lot of economic potential that's not being tapped into as a result of this absence of infrastructure. You know, this is not a benchmark, but the vision that kind of underpins or is foundation for the 3Cs initiative is a dream of completing Europe, a Europe that is truly whole, it's undivided, it's secure, it's prosperous, but also features a truly single European market space. And right now, I don't think you can really say, aside from a few laws, that marketplace truly exists in a singular way, because it's not just the laws that have to be in place, it has to be infrastructure is the bedrock of that single marketplace. You could say the laws and regs that's the software of a single European market, but the hardware is infrastructure, and that's still lacking, and that's what the 3Cs initiative is trying to address.
What should the medium and long-term goals be for this initiative?
If they were to ask me what would be some of the objectives I would have for the road to Bucharest, the next 3C summit the Romanians will host, I would say first and foremost, locking in and signing that document between the U.S. Development Finance Corporation, the DFC, and the 3Cs Fund, getting that $300 million available so it can be invested into energy projects. That's where the money can be used from the United States. That'd be objective number one. Objective number two would be see if we could get other financial institutions, from national financial institutions like KfW or the Japanese bank, or maybe the Mexican Development Bank, to invest in the 3Cs Fund. Third would be to use that sort of momentum, that sort of government commitment, trust, and confidence, use that to leverage private sector investment into the fund. Start getting that first pension fund to invest in the 3Cs Fund, forced corporation and such. So you can start accumulating, the private sector capital that we ultimately want to be the majority source of funding for this initiative and for this fund. That would be another objective. Another objective would be to, I would say, articulate a very clear and unambiguous vision about the 3Cs initiative relationship with the non-EU member states, the non-3C member states of Central and Eastern Europe. The Ukraines, the Moldovas, the Albanias, the Macedonias, the Bosnias, for the matter, the Serbias of the region. So it's clear they're not just thinking about themselves as a region, but they're thinking about, how they really fit into the broader effort of completing Europe, completing that vision of undivided Europe. Toward that end, I think it would be exciting to see the accession of Ukraine and perhaps others into the initiative. They need to work out the terms on that and the conditions. They might want to think about making a requirement, although they'd have to get two other Central Europeans member states to invest, but make it a requirement to invest in the fund. So you have, if you're going to be in the game, you got to be fully in the game with some of your own skin in the game. I think that's important. So those are the objectives. Another one I would have would be, launching a 3Cs infrastructure project that is truly indigenous or created by this initiative. Most of the projects that are being looked at right now or listed have been around before 3Cs even started. But a new one that would be, I think, commercially viable, that always has to be important because otherwise you won't get commercial investment, that could be quickly done, executed, built, and that has a price that is reasonably affordable, would be a 3Cs digital highway. Creating a fiber optic network that would loop through the 3Cs countries. That's cutting edge. That's very, very tangible. It would only cost probably $2 or $3 billion, which is feasible for a group of this size. And it would have an immediate impact of value economically and geopolitically.
What is the relevance of transatlanticism in the 3Cs initiative?
3Cs, when it was launched, always included in an emphasis on the transatlantic relationship. The Central European states have driven this initiative forward, have been unambiguous. They see this not as a solely European effort. They see it as part of the transatlantic community's effort to strengthen itself. And that's why they've been very, very adamant and very eager, and they have made great effort to ensure that the United States is participating in its summits. They made great effort to have President Trump attend the second 3C summit in 2017. And they are going to be asking the United States to return to each and every summit. They're looking for American investment. And they're emphasizing that, they're not looking for American assistance. They're looking for American investment that will bring a return to its owners, be it the US government or something or someone in the private sector. So they're not going to build a pipeline across the Atlantic and say it's a 3Cs project, but they really are looking for a robust American fingerprint on the initiative. And so far in the United States, there's been pretty robust bipartisan support for this initiative. And I think that will be enduring.
Can the 3Cs initiative serve as a model for other developing regions?
As you think about Latin America's, Central America's, South America's infrastructural development, is the 3C is something, a model that could be exercised so that those efforts are driven not solely by government monies, but also by the power of private capital. And for a region as both prosperous and growing, and I think does have a requirement for more robust cross-border infrastructure, 3Cs might provide an interesting model.